For over a decade, the Brown family of Alaskan Bush People has been a fixture on American television, presenting a unified front of rugged individualism and unbreakable familial bonds. They were the modern-day pioneers, the Wolf Pack, led by the indomitable patriarch Billy and the gentle, resilient matriarch, Ami. Their story was one of triumph over extreme isolation, harsh weather, and devastating illness, all while maintaining a seemingly unshakable love for one another. The family motto, "Blood is thicker than mud," was more than a saying. It was the bedrock of their entire identity. But behind the carefully curated scenes and dramatic storylines, a different truth has been simmering. Now, following years of turmoil, loss, and a very public fracturing of the family unit, Amy Brown, in a series of candid, emotional interviews, has decided to pull back the curtain on the painful reality she endured for the sake of the camera and the family legacy. She has for the first time revealed the 5 members of the Alaskan Bush People she came to resent the most, a heartbreaking confession from the woman who was always the family's heart. You spend your life building a sanctuary, a fortress of love and principles, only to watch the very people you built become the ones who tear it down, brick by brick, Amy shared, her voice soft but steady. Hate isn't a burning rage. It's a cold, slow ache of disappointment and betrayal. It's the hatred of what they chose to become and what they did to our family. What follows is a breakdown of Ami's shocking revelations, a countdown of the 5 individuals who caused the deepest wounds. The oldest son, Matt Brown, was once the embodiment of the Bush People spirit, a wild, inventive, and fiercely independent soul who seemed born for the wilderness. For Amy, Matt's inclusion on this list is the most tragic, rooted not in malice but in profound sorrow. With Matt, it was never about hate in the traditional sense, Amy explains, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. It was the hatred of watching a brilliant, beautiful spirit be consumed by its own demons. I hated the addiction. I hated the chaos he brought upon himself. Most of all, I hated the distance it created. Amy describes the early days in Browntown as some of her happiest, watching Matt's creativity flourish as he engineered complex systems for their remote homestead. But as the show's popularity grew, so did the pressures on Matt. His struggles with substance abuse, which have been publicly documented, began to fracture his relationship with the family. The cameras couldn't show the worst of it, Amy confesses. The broken promises, the frantic phone calls, the fear that the next knock on the door would be news of his death. Billy and I tried everything. We offered rehab, support, tough love, but the addiction became a wall between us. I hated what it did to him, and I hated the person he had to become to feed it. He was my first baby, and to feel him slipping away was a unique kind of agony. The hate was for the disease that stole my son, not for the son himself. The final straw for Amy was not his departure from the show, but the public narrative that followed. To hear him imply that he was forced out, that he wasn't supported, after everything we sacrificed to try and save him, that bred a different kind of resentment. It felt like a betrayal of the very private hell we endured as a family to protect him. Where Matt's story is one of tragedy, Bear Brown's place on this list is one of sheer, exhausting chaos. Amy admits that while Bear's exuberant, party bear persona made for good television, living with that reality was a relentless trial. Bear never understood the difference between living for the family and living for the moment, Amy says with a weary sigh. His impulsivity wasn't charming, it was dangerous. It compromised our safety, our resources, and our peace. I grew to hate the sound of his four-wheeler roaring off on some new, half-baked adventure because I knew it would end in a crisis that the rest of us would have to manage. Amy details incidents where Bear's stunts led to preventable injuries or damaged crucial equipment, putting the entire family's survival at risk during harsh winters. There's a difference between calculated risk and foolishness. Bear couldn't tell them apart. Billy often encouraged it, seeing it as spirit. But I was the one who had to patch up the wounds and calm the frayed nerves afterward. The dynamic worsened with Bear's romantic life, particularly his tumultuous relationship with Raven Adams. The public drama, the custody battles, it was the antithesis of everything we claimed to stand for. We were a private family living a simple life, and he dragged us into a very public, very modern soap opera. I hated the spotlight he shone on our family's darkest personal moments. It felt like he was selling our dignity for a few more minutes of fame. For Amy, the hatred for bears' behavior was a hatred for the erosion of order. In a world where survival depended on discipline and predictability, Bear was a constant, unpredictable variable that she could never fully control. This revelation may be the most surprising to fans. Bam Bam, the quiet, dependable, mechanical genius of the family, always appeared to be the steady rock. But according to Amy, that quiet nature hid a deep-seated passivity that in the end felt like a profound betrayal. Bam is a follower, Amy states bluntly. He has no malice in his heart, but he has no strong moral compass of his own either. He goes where the wind blows, and after Billy passed, the wind started blowing from a very different direction. Amy reveals that the power struggle that ensued after Billy's death was the catalyst for her resentment towards Bam. With the patriarch gone, the family's future, and the control of its significant assets and the show itself, was up for grabs. I expected the vultures from the outside, but I never expected my own sons to become vultures, she says, her voice hardening. Gabe and Bam, they sided with the new regime. They saw an opportunity and they took it, even if it meant pushing me and the girls to the periphery. Bam's sin, in Amy's eyes, was his silence. He never stood up for me. He never said, "This is our mother, show some respect." He just went along with the plans, signing contracts and making decisions that consolidated power and wealth away from the family unit and into the hands of a select few. I hated his weakness. I hated that his loyalty could be so easily bought with a promise of a bigger role or more control. The quiet son I thought I could rely on was, in the end, just another man who valued power over family. While not a blood relative, Amy reserves a special, seething place on this list for the producers and network executives behind Alaskan Bush People. She views them as the puppet masters who systematically dismantled her family from the inside out. They sold us a dream, Amy recalls, her tone turning icy. They promised to document our life, but they weren't documentarians, they were dramatists. And when our real lives weren't dramatic enough, they started to create the drama themselves. She describes a pattern of manipulation, of pitting family members against each other to create conflict. They would take a small disagreement between, say, Matt and Bear and fan the flames for days.